Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter, David, Steven, and Shane. Say what up, boys.
What's going on?
Hello.
Hello, nerds.
We are back. This time we are going through our commander grades of Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. We are doing the pre-con deck named the Hosts of Mordor. If you guys didn't already see, Steven had the opportunity to go ahead and do the $100 and $300 upgrades to that pre-con deck. Check the description down below where you can go and watch both of those videos. But we are doing the commander grades for every single new legendary from that pre-con. We will start it off with Grima, Saruman's Footman. This is 2, a blue and a black for a 1/4 legendary creature human advisor. It says it can't be blocked. And whenever it deals damage to a player, that player exiles card from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, and then that player puts the exiled cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom of their library in a random order.
Wait,
This
what?
seems good.
Seems awful.
What do you mean,
Why?
Hunter? Why would I let my opponent do that?
It can't be blocked.
I'm confused.
What are you confused about?
I want Hunter to take over here and explain why this
Yeah.
card is good, because I'm genuinely curious.
When this does damage, correct?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You exile the top cards of
No.
their library
Oh, yeah.
until you get an instant or sorcery, and you can play that card for free. What's bad about that?
It's slow at 4 mana. Sure, it can't be blocked, but it's only got 1 power there, so it's not actually like killing my opponents. It has the potential to rip an instant or sorcery that isn't relevant at all. It has to get in for combat damage. Like this is a perfect example of a commander that can do everything perfectly correct and literally have no impact over the course of an entire game.
It's play your opponent's stuff.
It is not play your opponent's stuff. It is play a thing of your opponent at random that you hope is relevant.
You're telling me you wouldn't make this deck around play your opponent's stuff?
No, I would not.
I disagree completely.
I wouldn't play this deck. I don't think this card actually does anything. This is a card that I look at and I was like, okay, well, cool, man. You can, I don't know, rip into my board wipe, and then if you want to blow up your board state, go for it. Or I guess you got to cultivate from me.
It says you may cast it. You don't have to.
Yeah, I know. So, like, even in that's the case, like, if you're not casting it, the card literally did nothing. It got in for 1 damage, and it's 4 mana. I wouldn't play this card if it cost 2 mana.
Are you telling me you wouldn't put any equipment on this? Make it bigger?
This is not a Voltron commander. This has no means of protecting itself on its own, and at 4 mana, that's starting to get to the point where it's too expensive because it's not coming down immediately. I don't think this card is good at all.
I disagree. That you can play your equipment, say Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves, before that card. They are 2 mana. This card comes down, equipped it for 0 cost. Boom, it's protected.
That's awesome. You got in with a 1 whole damage with haste.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you talked about giving it protection.
Steven, this card sucks.
This card is bad, and this card is good.
Okay, so what's it
which makes it a meh. It's a meh card.
I'm okay with this card. Let's move on to the grades then. I'm gonna go first. I like this card a lot. It's a C.
Pretty mediocre
for
a C.
Hey,
you probably know where I stand on this. I'm giving this an F.
This does stuff, but okay.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't think I'm going to go as low as David. I'm not going to go as high as Hunter. I'm going to give this a D.
Steven, I am so happy you said that. I'm going to go as a D as well.
Thank you.
The average grade for Grima is going to be a D. Next up, Lord of the Nazgul. It is 3, a blue and a black for a 4/3 legendary creature, Wraith Noble. It's got flying. It says Wraiths you control have protection from ring bearers. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with menace. Then, if you control 9 or more Wraiths, Wraiths you control have base power and toughness 9/9 until end of turn. All surrounding the number 9, right, David?
Yep.
This seems a lot better.
This is a very good card.
This reminds me of Tribal Not Tribal, right, Dave?
Tribal Not Tribal, the way that I built my tribal decks, where I have one creature of the tribe.
Yeah, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. This card does everything it wants to do by itself.
Well,
But
fun
back-
fact,
oh.
I'll do the number crunch for you guys. There are 11 wraiths, including this card.
You know what the
All
beauty is,
matching
Hunter?
these colors.
How many shapeshifters are there?
Well, that too.
There's plenty, but I'm just saying in
Plenty.
general.
I mean,
Also, but you also don't take into consideration that Nazgul, the card itself, you can have 9 copies of it. So more.
Yeah, I'll spend $90.
yeah, they're kind of expensive. It's also a card that's never going to be reprinted because Magic can't reprint a card named Nazgul.
Ooh, that's true. This card still seems really fun to play.
I don't actually look at this as okay. I look at this more like what Shane had mentioned at the very beginning, like this is tribal, not tribal, where this is probably the only Nazgul that I'm going to include in the deck. I'm actually not going to include any of the other ones, and then I'm just going to make this like a Dimir Storm, where I'm just making a ton of 3/3s with Menace, casting a bunch of things per turn, getting a big board state.
That's what I figured you'd do.
Yeah, the protection from ring bearers, I think, is just flavor text. I don't think that's ever actually going to be relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
Unless you're playing
it's only-
precons.
Yeah, I was going to say it's only specific to Lord of the Rings. So,
Well, yeah,
Flavor text.
and it's cool with flavor text. But this deck, I want to play it if Dave does make it.
Yeah, this is I think this is a great commander option. I hate 5 mana commanders, so it's tough for me. It's very off-putting, no matter how good a commander could be. But I think it'd be a pretty solid Dimir Storm deck, like David was saying, which just sounds fun. That just sounds good.
Now, my only thought on this, and I do want to bring this up because it's a bit of a downside, getting 9 of them in play is actually still kind of challenging, even with changelings. Or I guess if you did shell out all that money for the other Nazgul, the other ring rates. And it does kind of leave you in a weird spot. Like if you do have 9 of them, that's great. Your creatures are big, and you attack in, and then your opponent uses a piece of removal against literally any of your creatures, and then they go from 9/9s to 3/3s, and maybe get eaten up on blocks.
Well, they do have minutes, so that's nice. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, like they got that additional buff, so like they're not just like dead in the water. But if you are anticipating like killing one of your opponents or attacking in, and you know, hey, maybe that a couple 4/4s, like you could potentially really hurt your board, and it's going to take you maybe a while to build back up.
It's really unfortunate they don't have flying, man. That'd been maybe too good though.
let's move on to the grades. David, we'll start with you. What are you giving Lord of the Nazgul?
I think it's got a lot of upside, but I do think that this card is really slow. I think that the 9 power, 9 toughness thing is kind of more of a pipe dream than anything else. And coming in at 5 mana, like what Steven mentioned, is kind of expensive. So I'm actually going to say, regardless of all the wonderful things here, I'm going to give this a C.
I'm going to be right next to you, buddy. I'm going to give it a C.
I'm
thinking-
higher.
Yeah, I think I'm a little higher. I think I'm gonna give it a B.
I'm giving it a B too. The average grade for Lord of the Nazgul is going to be a B. Moving on to Monstrosity of the Lake. It is 4 and a blue for a 4/6 legendary creature, Kraken. It says when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 5. If you do, tap all creatures your opponents control, then put a stun counter on each of those creatures. It also has island cycling of 2. This is an interesting one, right, David?
No.
It's reminiscent of my other mono blue Kraken deck that the Kraken itself costs 8, and then you have to pay 8 when you attack, tap everything down. This has a stun counter though, so that's what 2 turns they're saying tap down now. Like, I'm not
Sure.
saying it's great, but
For a full 9 mana, 100%.
oh, I don't. I'm not. I'm just saying, like in my other deck that
10 mana.
For a full
What?
10 mana, yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
it does say enters the battlefield, so like devil's advocate here, you don't actually have to cast it and use that ability. Like if you do manage to bounce it, flicker it, do something with it where you're going to make it like ETB again, you can pay for it a second time. So there is a world where you could like stun lock your opponents.
That'd be cool.
a lot of mana,
mean,
but
Well, we talked about it last time that we got together. The Thassa, like she does it for free, so you just pay 5 at the end of your turn, bounce this thing, have it ETB again, and then boom, your opponents just like never get their toys. They just don't untap.
hey, the good thing about this though, they're counters. So if you want to proliferate somehow, that seems mean.
Proliferate in blue? What do you mean?
I mean, you know, might find a way to do it.
Seems very doable. But it is going to be 5 mana to cast, 5 mana to use the ability
Very true.
immediately. So
Very true.
casting is from the command zone. You have to have 10 mana up. I don't know. That is itself scary. I think we can move on to the grades. I'm going to give Monstrosity of the Lake a D.
I'm still going to give this card an F. I don't think this is going to do anything about 95% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that low. I think I'm going to go with a D as well, just for the fact that this does do a thing, and it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
I'm gonna be the blue Kraken player that says it's a C.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Well, Monstrosity of the Lake is going to get an average grade of a D. Moving on to Saruman, the White Hand. It is 1, a blue, a black, and a red for a 2/5 legendary creature, Avatar Wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass orcs X or X that spell's mana value. And goblins and orcs you control have Ward 2. Seems pretty good, right, Shane?
I guess it's cool to have goblins and orcs have ward 2. That's cool. I don't know. I'm not. Besides besides Steven's deck, the whole mass orcs I haven't really seen. I'm not sure if I'm sold on it yet.
I mean, it doesn't even be mass orcs. We've seen the army thing before.
Yeah, but it's just like it makes one thing. I don't know.
It makes one thing giant.
True.
And with this, you can make that thing giant very quickly. Non-creature spells. Spell slinger.
Yeah, but I'm gonna
great.
block it with a 1/1 and just chump, dude.
No, that's when you just bring out, the Monstrosity of the Lake, dude, and you just tap everything down.
Hey, it is blue. You're right. I could do that.
Yeah, this card was the secondary commander that I could have used for in the Host of Mordor, and I mean it is in the colors for a spell slinger deck with some extra value fun with that black pip, but to put all that effort into amassing an army of 1 and then just making that really big and possibly taking out one person, I never really it didn't really interest me. So I wasn't very high on this card.
Yeah, I don't think that amass is a mechanic that translates over to EDH very well. I mean, even if you do have this thing be like a 10/10 army, it still gets chump blocked by a 1/1. And Ward 2, I guess that's cool and all, but I don't think it's enough to really kind of like prevent your opponents from killing your things.
No, plus I mean just kill this and then they don't have to worry about the ward,
Yep.
I still think it's pretty solid. Just give the giant thing, like you mentioned, a 10/10. Give it trample. Or make it unblockable.
See, here's the thing, though, is that I don't like having to include a lot of steps to make a card good.
I want my things to be good on one card.
I mean,
I mean,
ideally, I
yeah.
do, yeah.
Isn't that
I
what
don't want to
EDH
jump through
is?
hoops.
You put the best
Yeah, I
valued
get it.
cards in the deck.
Sure. That's why you build around cards, right? Let's move on to the grades. Steven, what are you giving it?
Oh man, I'm just gonna go with my gut. I think this is a D.
Mm.
Yeah, I was not high on this card whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm going to be kind of around that range with Steven. This is slow, doesn't really do much on its own. It's cute that it gives goblins ward, but this is never going to be my choice for a goblin commander. I'm going to give this a C and be a little bit more lenient than him.
I'm kind of on a C as well.
Well, I am going to give Saruman a C as well. So the average grade for Saruman the White Hand is going to be a C. Moving on to the face commander of the Hosts of Mordor deck. This is Sauron, Lord of the Rings. It is 5, a blue, a black, and a red, or a 9/9 legendary creature avatar horror. It says when you cast this spell, amass orcs 5, mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has trample, and whenever a commander an opponent controlled dies, the ring tempts you. Steven, we will start with you because you did the upgrade to the deck and used this as your face commander.
I did. Um, at first, I thought that the trample and the ring tempting you thing was kind of flavor text. The trample is a very real thing. I can promise you that after playtesting with you guys. But I was not a fan of this card at first because it did cost 8 mana, and over the course of all of our videos, I feel like I've said it many times. the high cost mana cards for commanders are not my thing, but the payoff is ridiculous. For 8 mana, you get to amass works 5, so you get 1 creature. You mill 5 cards, you return a creature card, so now you're at 2 creatures, and then you have this hit the field. So for 8 mana, you have essentially put a very threatening board state out, and it gets aggressive very quickly, depending on what you bring out.
Yeah, it seems like every time you played this card, we were looking for board wipes.
You really have to, and I think the best thing about it is it didn't matter.
Yeah, because it went to the graveyard and then you just did it again.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of those cards too that like it's pseudo like I don't know, it just gets so much value even if this thing gets countered because of its first ability. Like you're still gonna get 2 bodies out of it. Sure, you don't get your 9/9 with trample, but I don't know. This, like what Steven said, this thing costs literally 1,000,000 mana. But if it hits the board, it is a massive threat.
Yeah, we've seen this before. Giant creatures that are just massive threats, like Steven. A Tolly, you run that. That is also a massive threat that hits the board and just takes over a game. This is the same kind of card.
Yeah, Tali Primal Sickness is sick.
Sick, man.
But yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing here. This is a big, dangerous card. Let's move on to the grades. Steven, what are you giving it?
I know I was talking really highly on it, but I'm actually going to put this at a C. And
What?
the reason why is, although it is a good card, this card is going to get targeted a lot, and that 8 will become 10, and then 12, and then 14, and it's going to get to a point where you are not casting this commander at all anymore. You are just solely relying on the rest of your deck. So
Yeah, but
you might,
we'll all be
yeah,
dead by then.
you have to kill people fast.
And that's where I'm kind of on the same page as Steven. It is way too much mana. We are not in green, so it will be a little harder to ramp into this. I know we saw your deck, Steven, with treasure production and all that stuff. But if you don't get that running as smoothly as it can be pretty devastating to get to this point. So I am also going to give this a C.
I think I'm on the B side of this, just because of the whole play 1 card, get a board state. I like that.
I do think that this card is incredibly susceptible to any kind of stacks, just because like this really can't handle any additional attacks. And then if your opponents do manage to shut down some of its abilities, this card gets really bad really fast. With that being said, though, I mean, like if you do manage to get this thing out early, it's a massive threat. So I'm gonna say it's a C.
Sauron, Lord of the Rings, gets the average grade of a C. Next up, Shelob, Dreadweaver, 3 and a black for a 3/3 legendary creature spider demon. It says whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, exile it. Also has another ability we can pay 2 and a black. Put a creature card exiled with Shelob, Dreadweaver, into its owner's graveyard. Put 2+1/+1 counters on Shelob, draw a card. And another ability that says pay X1 and a black. Put a target creature card with mana value X, exiled with Shelob, onto the battlefield tapped under your control. Seems interesting.
Seems very meh.
Seems like it goes
Yeah.
very good in the 99.
It is good in the 99 of something. It is definitely one of those cards where you have to climb the ladder and do each ability once and then get to that final ability.
I mean, I am not touching that second ability. Sorry. I'm not going to put a creature card back in your. I mean, granted, if you don't have any graveyard recursion, but like, I do not want to give you back an option to possibly get a good creature. I love the fact that this card exiles, but for 4 mana is a bit aggressive when
3.
other cards do it way better. What do you mean? It's 4.
The second ability is
No, the second
Second-
ability puts a creature card back in. This card just exiles when it's on the field.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm misreading things.
You're good. But you are basically paying that 4 mana, and then you're it's too slow, like then you have to basically wait till next turn if you've used some extra mana to kill a creature that you really want to bring back to your side.
I mean, for 3 mana, honestly, if your opponent's not playing recursion, I'm okay with putting something that was exiled back into the graveyard to get 2+1/+1 counters and to draw a card. That's good value.
Yeah, I understand. I would agree.
I'm not there.
I don't know. We've seen these like the first line of text there about the exile clause. That's cute. I don't really think that does a whole lot. The second ability, I do think is kind of mana expensive, and most decks do have some degree of recursion, so I'm going to be really iffy on when I use that. And then the last mode on this is so expensive, having to pay for the mana value of the card and an additional 2 on top of that. I don't think that this is really going to do a whole lot, because if I'm using those abilities, I'm not playing cards.
And he comes into the battlefield tap, dude. Blech.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is slow. Let's move on to the grades. Shane, what are you giving it?
I think I'm gonna give it a D, bud.
I agree with Shane. I'm going to give this a D.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and agree with the two of you and say this is a D.
Looks like we're all on the same train here. I'm also giving it a D. The average grade for Shelob is going to be a D. And the final new legendary from the hosts of Mordor is the Balrog of Moria. It is for 2 black and a red for an 8/8 legendary creature avatar demon. It has trample and haste and says when it dies, you may exile it. When you do, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. Has cycling of 3 and a red. And whenever you cycle the Balrog of Moria, create 2 treasure tokens. Yeah, so it wants to do a lot. It wants to die. I don't know. What do we think about this card, David?
Well, I do love Rakdos. I do love demons. And 8/8s with trample and haste are really cool. Just not this one. He is way too expensive, and it's an 8/8 with trample and haste. The other abilities in the card really, they aren't actually abilities.
Kind of a vanilla 8/8 trample haster, right?
Funny that we say it's vanilla now. But yes, it's just 8 mana for an 8/8 with trample and haste. That's all
I
it is.
don't understand why you guys are hating on this card. This card is 7 mana
Okay.
for trample and haste.
It is 7 mana. Sorry.
I was
Wait.
waiting for like the kick there of like, but you just stopped talking, so I get the joke now. I love that. Just a real quick, the second ability on this of like whenever it dies, you can exile it. If you exile it, you can't redirect that back to your command zone, so you're literally exiling out your commander. I guess if you really hate your opponent's things that much, you can do that, but
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. I think that's the point that I'm trying to get at is this card's so great because obviously Rakdos lacks removal.
That is
So
a good
being
point.
able to exile your commander to basically remove your opponent's things, I think this is great. Great. Just really amazing.
Moving on to the grades. David, what are you giving it?
This is an F.
F.
I agree. It is an F.
F.
The Balrog of Moria is the average grade of an F. And that is going to do it for us today. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Comment down below what you thought of all these grades. Did you agree with us? Did you disagree with us? We would like to know. Also, in the description, you will find links to our Instagram, our TikTok, and our Twitter. That is @GuysThatMagic for every single one. Follow us on each of those. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Later.
Doodles.
Bye bye.